Hi, I'm Brian, and today we're going to attempt to make a custom mat for my new Rivian R1T. So I've scoured the internet looking for a company that'll make a custom mat for the pickup truck. I have a problem with all of my equipment just sliding all over the place in the back of the pickup, and I need a rubber mat to keep everything in place. I'm actually going to use mine for a little bit of ranch work, and so I need to be able to bring my tools, haul equipment, and do everything with that small bed that's in the pickup truck. So I'm going to do my best to try to retrofit one, and I'll show you guys how I do it. I'll give you the dimensions at the end of the video on if I'm successful in getting it to fit just right. And hopefully you can make one for yourself, because as far as I can tell, there's no companies, and Rivian themselves aren't making any mats for the beds of the pickup truck.
So this is the flooring that I went with. It's the Traffic Master 4-foot by 6-foot wiper mission. You're gonna need a couple of things. I recommend a right angle. This one's like 23 inches, an X-Acto knife, a pencil, a straight edge. I didn't show it in there, but you're also going to need a gold Sharpie, and you're also going to need some tape, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But this is the flooring. It's kind of thin. It's the best one that they had at Home Depot. It was the right size for trying to just use one piece. So to make a template, which I recommend doing so you don't make any bad cuts and you can verify the fit, I got some butcher paper. It needs to be at least 53 to 55 inches long. I taped it to the floor, and what I'm doing here is I'm just making the measurements for my template. Once I make the template, I'm going to go put it in the truck, verify that it fits. This is the hard part. It took me a couple of times to get it just right. I had to do 3 different templates, and the dimensions I'm going to give to you is my final template, so you don't have to spend the time messing around with it. But once we get it just right, I'm going to show it to you in the back of the truck in just a second here. So once you got your template drawn out, you'll want to go ahead and use the X-Acto knife to go ahead and cut it out. I would recommend having some backing down. I've got my gym floor here. I wouldn't do it on concrete or any hard surfaces. It's just going to dull your blade. Maybe put some cardboard underneath there, but go ahead and just carefully cut out the template, and then in just a minute here we'll take it over to the truck and make sure we have a good fit. I wouldn't try to do this without a template, because this is my 3rd template that I made. If I had just gone straight to cutting the mat, I would have had to bought 3 different mats. So just make sure it fits. Mine fits pretty good, pretty happy with it. And so the next step is to go ahead and transfer that template over to the mat. You want to measure half the distance of the width of the mat and go ahead and cut it into 2 24-inch sections. That's what I'm doing here. When you do this, I would just score it real light pressure so you can be accurate. Don't try to go all the way through on the first pass. On the second and third pass, apply just a little bit more pressure, and that'll get you through the material safely and more accurately. I did cut it a little bit longer, about 54, 55 inches, even though it's going to end up being 53 inches. So just go ahead and tape the template to the half that you just cut, and go ahead and do the same thing. Just make your cutouts. It doesn't take too long once you get to this point right here. And once we cut it out, we'll take it to the truck and go ahead and try it in. Once you take it back to the truck, you may notice you may have to tweak it just a little bit. I think I had to take a little bit off a couple of times, but overall it fit pretty good this 3rd time. So once you've tried the first piece in, just go ahead and flip that template over. Get the other side cut so that they have an opposite side. And then go ahead and try it in the truck. You'll see that there's a centerpiece that we'll have to cut and tape to the other 2. But at this point, I just verified that we had a pretty good fit. Pretty happy with it. So once you get the two halves all the way over to the side and exactly where you want them, you'll want to go ahead and measure the distance between the two pieces. I was off by about a half an inch from the bottom. You'll want to go up to the top here as well. The top was about 9 inches. The bottom was about 8.5 inches. So I actually took the two pieces and just cut a little bit in this area that I'm showing you right here to make those about the same. Ended up being about, I think it ended up being about 8.5. I know I just said 9, but I think it was 8.5 was the length of strip that I had to cut for the center here. So the discarded end that we cut off, we're going to use that as our center strip. So I went ahead and measured my 8.5 inches on the top and the bottom. Went ahead and made that cut. In just a minute here, I'm going to take it out to the truck and try it in. This is where you'll have to do a little bit of fine tuning as well. Make sure that it fits snug, but not too snug, and close enough, because we're going to, at the end here, tape the seams together. Sorry about that. I think I had to adjust the camera there, but so we're making that 8.5 inch cut. Had to come back, like I said, do a little bit of fine tuning on it, and just make sure that it had a really snug fit. You want it to fit as snug as possible against the other two pieces. So at this point, I'll go ahead and try that piece in. I'm about 3 hours into this project, and it just is not looking good to me. I was hoping that the pieces would be heavy enough and thick enough that you could just place them on the bed of the truck. They would just kind of go together seamlessly, but this material is actually pretty thin. My initial thought was I was going to use the same material that I have on my gym floor here. That's probably a little less than an inch thick. It's really heavy-duty rubber. You can cut it with an X-Acto knife, but it's really hard stuff. And so I decided to go with something a little thinner. You can see the thickness of the material I ended up going with. It's a little easier to cut and easier to work with. But looking back, I kind of wish I would have went with something a little thicker. At just that moment in the height of my frustration, I remembered that I have an old roll of flex tape in my closet. So I go and I hunt down my flex tape and grab it, and my idea is, well, let's go ahead and tape those pieces together and see if we can get it fitting good and looking half decent. So that was kind of my plan. It wasn't my plan from the beginning to tape these together, but you'll see at the end it actually worked out pretty good. I don't recommend anything other than flex tape. I did try duct tape at first, and duct tape is a no-go. It's got to be something really sticky and really strong and hopefully weatherproof. So I cut the flex tape into strips because it was a little bit too wide. Plus I wasn't going to have enough for the length of the truck bed. So I went ahead and cut those into strips and applied it to each one of the pieces. So here I'm adding the flex tape to the pieces in the middle. It does have a plastic backing on it, so put a little bit down. As you work your way down, just peel the plastic backing off of there, making sure you get even amounts on each side, right and left, so it has good adhesion, and hopefully it'll last a good long while. Overall with this project, I'd probably give it a B- as far as this aesthetics of the mat. I think it'll work pretty well. I'm not sure how durable this material is. It is kind of thin, but after I finished applying all of the adhesive to all of the seams, you'll see here in a second, I just went ahead and stomped on it and walked on it and just made sure that we got good adhesion to all the seams. In just a minute, we'll show right here a bit of adjustment that I had to make. Once I had everything in place, I noticed in this corner over here, there's actually a slight taper to the truck bed right there. So it's about a 1/4 inch or so, 4 inches out. So I took it back into the garage. You can kind of see, I don't know if you can tell right here, but I had to make a little bit of a slant cut right there so the matting material would lay down flat. So at the end of your project, if you do this, just go ahead and make that cut so that it lays down nicely. All All right, so the dimensions of the template, you go 2.5 inches down, 5 inches in. All the angles are 145 degrees. You go down 21.5 inches to get around the wheel well. Go back in at 145, 5 inches, down 16.5, back out 4 inches, and the last little bit is 4.5 inches. So a template and should look something like this. And like I said before, you may need to make a couple little tweaks, but that'll get you where you need to be. So here I am taking my toolbox for a ride, see if it slides around. I'm doing donuts here in my cul-de-sac. Here I'm accelerating at a pretty good rate. And here I'm coming to a stop here in a second and hitting the brake pretty hard. Toolbox seems to stay in place. So overall, it looks like it's doing the job I intended. I just wanted to make sure my equipment doesn't slide around and mess up the side of the bed. So overall, give it a thumbs up.